All right, Soham, welcome back. Another week of GG's with EG. Tough weekend once again. We have a lot to look forward to at the end of the season, but going up against Sentinels this past weekend, a tough loss. 2-0 against obviously what is seemingly looking like one of the better teams in the league and in our group. One that I know, you know, we've always played them pretty closely. I was hoping for another epic comeback like we had against them last season, but I think like some positives to take out of it. But definitely one where we felt maybe a little bit below expectations just in terms of our overall performance. Hoping the team can pick it up next week when we have a do or die against Furia.
Yeah, look, I mean the reality. First of all, is this our fourth one, Chris? Yeah, this must be our fourth
Let's see.
because we've had four
Yeah, fourth.
matches.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
and I think let's be real. To me, I think like on paper, if I'm like stepping out of the team for a second, who were we the underdogs against, and who were we kind of favored? I would say like 2G. We should have been favored. We won that one. And then against C9, I think we're slightly, underdogs there. Obviously, C9 beat us there. G2, I think, was the toss up because, of course, they're using the stand in. They had Baby Bay, who's been doing great, obviously. Props to
Yep.
him, props to G2. And, it was a close game, right? At least we were in it, and then they kind of ran away within the last couple of maps. And that was like 50-50. And then of course Sentinels this year, this week, I'm saying this year, it feels like such no, but the Sentinels, of course, I think on paper they're favored, and they definitely showed kind of they came in and they really have been doing their job ever since that close game and the series against G2, right, where they kind of, I think it was a shock to their system as a team. I think we also discussed that in one of our earlier episodes of kind of how will Sen respond to almost losing to a team with a stand-in. But obviously, since then,
Yep.
Sen has been showing up. Even G2 continued their kind of winning ways as well. So from that
Yes, they did. Baby Bay
perspective,
had his first ace,
first
I
ace,
think, maybe ever,
yeah,
at
yeah.
least in VCT competitive.
Isn't that, and I want to use that point actually to talk about something about like what can you do when you don't have the pressure on you, which clearly baby he's kind of just here and he's doing his best, he's swinging
Uh,
for the fences,
Playing with
right?
house money, it's amazing. Yeah.
Exactly. We'll touch back on that because I think it's pretty relevant to EG as well. But yeah, I think from that perspective, looking at from the outside perspective, am I 100% surprised or disappointed? I can't say I am, but from the perspective of like seeing how hard our team works, day to day, and how much preparation goes into it, of course, I think everyone is
Yep.
disappointed. No one is looking to go into a game and lose. So from that, I think we can only say, hey, we played Lotus again. We had a few different Lotus maps throughout the season, throughout the stage already. So, couple with Tejo, one with Chamber, of course, and then Corrode, which we also have played. So nothing
Hmm.
surprising in the sense like we're not playing something that we haven't practiced on, that we don't have match reps on at this point. So from that perspective, of course, I think our team is very disappointed. Definitely played below expectations to our own selves, but also just from how practice has been going. So yeah, I think Sentinels did their job for sure. On paper, they were the favorites as well, but it doesn't change the fact that I think we felt like we could have made the game more competitive and even snuck out a win on that Lotus as well. So with that being said, what was your take on kind of just overall the series? Do you disagree with the favorites and underdogs, or do you feel like that kind of lines up with how you see it as well?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It totally lines up. I mean, like you look at the 5 games we had this stage, right? And I think we talked in week one after the 2G match that it was like you're playing against Cloud9 in groups, who's always good, right? G2, who's perennial top team, Sentinels, perennial top team. And like hopefully we take one of those three. We didn't take one of those three, but like, we probably we had a chance maybe against G2 in a way, right? But like um I didn't I didn't think that we were gonna take all of them. I think we got one, it would have been great. We didn't, but that's okay. Like things still kind of fell the way that we were hoping they would fall in terms of the standings and the matches. I think we were, yeah, going to be the underdogs in all three of those pretty heavily. And we were, and it turned out, the favorites won in all three of those. But now we've got, two matches where like it's at least even footing or we're favored. And so those are you have to win those, right? We've always talked about that. And now we're shaping our own destiny, right? When you win, you're in. You lose, and the off season starts much earlier. So
Yeah.
that's you. At least you're in the driver's seat, right? You're 1-3, but you're technically in the driver's seat because you won the matches you had to win, which is a good place to be. I think like you want to rely on yourself. Because if you're confident in the way practice is going, and you're confident in your teammates, and you know that they're gonna be able to pick up the slack maybe when you don't, or you're be able to pick it up for them, and like you're just gonna play as a team, win as a team. Like you want to be in this position where you don't have to rely on other people and other teams to help get you in, which has happened in the past for us, right? And so we want to be in a spot where we win and we make playoffs, and like I mean, as 1-3, like you really can't ask for more than that, right? Like you would think like we'd be beholden to a lot of other options, but thankfully the schedule worked out the way it did, and the team knows what they have to do.
Yeah, I think that's the best case scenario from the outcome of obviously we would love to be 2-2 right now, 3-1, obviously even better. But I think given we're 1-3, like you said, I do think like this is probably the best case scenario. We have it totally in our hands, destiny for us to make happen, and it's against Furia. Obviously, has not played super well this year, and the stage as well for various reasons. Obviously, they haven't really been able to even field their entire lineup, which
Right.
I can only imagine what that feels like for them as well, organization and players both, just to keep grinding, but then no, it's not your best footing, right? Best foot forward.
Mm-hmm.
That part definitely, I feel for them, but at the same time, like just like any coach and any would tell you in these moments, it's very easy to start to underestimate or even kind of feel a little bit empathy towards your opponent, and you got to be careful when we reach that level, right? Because we are still trying to do our jobs and make sure that we qualify. It's like it's totally in our hands right now. If we take our foot off the gas pedal, it could definitely be very dangerous. And the worst outcome, I think, for us at this point is we don't qualify to playoffs, but it's because we lost to Furia in a sense because they're not at their 100% full strength, right? So I think that
Yep.
part, it does apply pressure too, in a whole different way. We're the favorites, definitely going in, but if we have
Mm-hmm.
that pressure of like, what would happen if you lose? And I think in a way, I do think our team, I think Coach Potter as well, we definitely thrive under that kind of pressure. If there's no pressure, I feel like we're not in the perfect zone. And I'm kind of curious about you as well. Just in how do you deal with that in your day to day life? Even if when it comes to EG, but outside of EG, you obviously got here for a reason. Everyone goes through pressure. Everyone has struggles throughout their lives, different levels of it, of
Yep.
course. There's a lot of folks I know I've met. I think I'm also in that category where a little bit of pressure, a little bit like a deadline looming, and I'm suddenly at my best. What is that? I mean, how does that look like for you? I'm very curious, honestly.
Yeah. I think I mean it rings true, right? Like what is it? Pressure makes diamonds, or some whatever the phrase is, right? Like to be super corny.
Yep.
Uh, like you it should bring out the best in you because like it's time to perform and go for it. Like I think as like a business leader and like as somebody just in my daily life, it's not like in a position like I like to be in all the time because I think it also takes years off your life to be under pressure all the time, right?
Right. Right.
You want to be able to get to a point where like the work you're putting in, the work ethic you have, the prep work you're doing, the planning get you to a point where like you are hopefully averting a lot of the pressure because you're doing all the work to get ahead of it, right? Whether that's from a competitive standpoint or like just from a business marketing, whatever it might be, right? Like trying to be ahead, think ahead, plan strategically so you avoid the pressure. But the pressure cooker situations, like it's a different mindset, right? Like you need to think about like prioritization becomes like one of the ultimate skills in that regard, where how do you almost ruthlessly prioritize your life to ensure that success is the outcome that has to happen from whatever situation you might be in. And it's like it's an like it's a fun it's it's not fun. I mean, it can be when the results turn your way, but like I
Right.
also think it's one of those things where like you learn so much about yourself and about the people you work with or just other people in like those kind of pressure situations. And like in a way, you I I used to work a lot in like a very fast paced. It wasn't like trading or anything. It was actually like just event marketing, but like it stuff happens in the 11th hour. You have to be ready for like uh this storm blew out of nowhere or wind blew up. Like how are you prepped and prepared like to deal with these crazy pressure situations? Or oh my goodness, like this crazy person came through the booth or they're drunk and they're falling all over the place. Like you have to like be almost at the ready to switch and deal with like things that get thrown your way and put you into that. We're like, oh, things are going great. Like, oh, we're having a great day here at the event, and then all of a sudden something happens, shit hits the fan, and like, how can you deal with that? And like, how have you done almost prep work in your mind to deal with these like crisis situations? And I like to go back to like the team, like, I bet if we had asked Potter or Mike or Foe, like, to like, hey, like, where do you think things are gonna go? I bet, maybe they think we're probably sitting in this situation. Maybe like we have one more win, right? If we're gonna be realistic, I think we always want to win all the games, but like
Right.
we're gonna be realistic about it. They probably think we're in this situation. So like the prep work to be done of like, okay, we've learned from mistakes. Now we know like potentially how to handle it. I think it's also how you see the players themselves, right? Like a lot of teams the first time they're on stage, right? For players, maybe it doesn't go as well, right? Because like it's those first time jitters, a lot of pressure. Now you're playing in front of a couple hundred people in the venue, hundreds of thousands of people watching you, right? They're gonna clip stuff, talk about you on social media. Like that is you almost can't prepare for that kind of thing. Like it just has to happen and you have to get through it and learn what it is like to live with the pressure. And then you go into it again, you're like, okay, cool. Like now I know the riot, how we have to get there early. We walk through this, we do the walkthrough on stage. And so like you just deal with it. But I think for our team, we have some vets, like this is a time where like they're gonna go back to like they've been in these situations before. They know how to prep for this stuff. And you hope to see the best from them because they're all going to get down and put their nose to the grindstone to work for it. I think that's the same thing here at our staff. Like when we come up, like when things happen or we get into some type of key pressure situation, like we know, like we all have each other's backs and like we're all going to put in the effort to get us through to that next moment. And if we fail, like we fail as a team, and we're not cast, yeah, like we all put in a part of it, we all fail as a team, and like we learn from that. And like yes, sometimes the learnings are harsh, right? Like if we fail against Furia, like we're out of the season.
Right.
That's a rough way to lose,
Right.
and have to learn from. But like that I think is also one of the things here at EG, like we've gotten better about, is like we are going to fail, we're going to make mistakes, but like if we're not learning from them and not getting better in some regard, then like just in general as a career, as a leader here at EG, like I'm failing the company if we're not like, we can fail and like we could try new things and do, and maybe they just don't go our way, right? Like we did the Mish plushie, it didn't get funded, right? And that sucked. I loved that thing. I wanted it to be there. I wanted it to be live and in people's hands. There were economic issues that we came across, but I think we also learned a little bit about ourselves and like maybe where our fans are at currently, what they're interested in, what they want, how much they're willing to support Evil Geniuses, and like the path that we still have to go on to rebuild the fandom, to rebuild the affinity and the love for this brand that when you're in it every day, maybe you don't always see, or maybe you think there's more of it, but you also learn a lot, just like some of these external factors, tariffs, pricing, like. And so as a team, like we're gonna get better the next time we launch something, or the next time we come out to market with maybe a new Mish plushie or a new Mish piece of apparel. Like I think we will be able to take all of that and get us into find the success, find the win. And so I guess to go back to esports, like like we are going to learn from the mistakes. And I think if you look at like the positions that G2, Cloud9, and Sentinels have put us in, like high pressure situations, we're down what, like 11-4, like we're in shit situations, right? And like to be against the best in a position where you're losing, like will hopefully get you to think about, at least in VOD reviews or next steps, of like, okay, like how do we take this? We're down by this much, right? We know where we were mentally there. We look at how we play the game. Like, let's take that as fuel to like and preparation work for the time when the pressure cooker is really on against Furia. So we either don't get ourselves in that situation to begin with, or if we do, okay, we know how to handle it now, or we've learned from this, and let's take these things as learnings and try to work towards a victory. So I'm sorry I rambled a lot there and maybe went even deeper than you were asking, but like
That was
I
great.
think it's not like this is something that we get, like there'll be so many emails about people asking how do I get into esports, and like I want to work in esports, I love gaming, and like you have to love gaming to work here and work at EG or anything in the esports space, but like you have to be able to deal with like things shifting on a dime, pressure of living up for your fans. Like we have millions of fans, right? And like there's pressure every day for us to perform, not only from a competitive standpoint, but like on social media with content, with merch, with jerseys. Like everybody here has some type of pressure, exerted pressure from the outside, that they have to learn how to compartmentalize and then like utilize to grow and to improve as a person in their career, whether it's for EG or for the future, wherever they go.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things that you said, and thank you for sharing. I think this kind of feedback we don't get to hear often from executives in the space, especially folks that it's not just about the business side. You have to handle the competitive side and whatever comes with that. We're not going to always control the wins and losses, right? There's another team on the other side
Yep.
that's working just as hard theoretically. They're going through the same, successes and failures and drive to keep winning as well. It's not just a one-sided PVE game, right? So
Yeah.
I think from that perspective, yeah, I think like especially someone in your position, there's the competitive side, there's the marketing and partnership sides, there's actually just running an organization as well. I mean, and that's not even to get into all the other daily obstacles and great stuff that comes with life as well, right? Your family and everything beyond just the business and the organization. So there's a couple things that come to my mind. One is one thing I really like, and this is, I think it's a quote from Jeff Bezos. Or how do you say his last name? Definitely everyone knows him as Jeff from Amazon, right? But in terms of like he says something where it's kind of like uh, we are stubborn about our vision, but we are flexible on the details, and that you have to make decisions even when you don't have all the information in front of you, and that carries weight not just in the server. Obviously, that's true. You're playing an imperfect information all the time. You're playing off of imperfect information in the mid round. You have to make decisions whether or not you can 100%, really know exactly what the other team's setup is. But really, I mean, that applies to life and business as well. You're constantly having to make decisions. And oftentimes I've found in my experience, and curious about your take on this too, but sometimes maybe optimal decision is A, whatever A means, right? And maybe you just have to go with B or C because you have less information. You can't make the perfect decision. So waiting on making one sometimes is worse than just making a suboptimal one. And you end up somewhere
Yep.
that's better anyway than when you initially started, because you're making a decision, seeing what happens, and then playing off of that, adapting to that in business or in the server, right? Sometimes it's
Yes.
about making decisions when you feel like you're under pressure. You maybe make a mistake. You probably will make a mistake, and that's okay. To your point, it's okay to make
Yeah.
mistakes. You learn from it, and it's the ultimate example of that is in the server. And if you make a mid round mistake, that affects you immediately, your team immediately, and then you have to adjust immediately as well. Excuse me. And
Yep.
I just love that kind of idea because, of course, going into the games, we have an idea of the game plan, and we have the game plan itself, the vision, so to speak, right? How we're going to play, what is our
hmm
system like, what are our comps going into these maps, and what does that mean for us when we run up into something that we haven't seen before in practice? How do you deal with all of that? it really just applies to a lot. So I love that quote.
It does.
Yeah.
Yes.
So curious about your take. Just like, how do you see it? Like in terms of you have a vision in mind whenever you approach anything, and that's how you kind of go high, top to bottom in that sense.
Yep.
Work out the details as you go, or you're more the type where you really want to get all the details right. You're more of a bottom up kind of person, bottom up learner, bottom up. What's your approach
Hmm.
to this kind of stuff?
Uh, I it's funny, like for a long, long time, like I was a guy, and mostly still am, like I want as much information as possible to be able to make a decision. Um, but especially in this space where like there's so many unknowns, we don't even know what 2027 is going to look like for Valorant, right? And so like you have to try to run a business with only half the information, and like also you have to try to make decisions that are good for the players, right? For their performance, we want to empower them to win, right?
Right.
Good for the fans, a totally different kind of like people you're trying to achieve and make happy, for your own staff, like for your board and shareholders, right? As a business, like all of these are almost like different like people, stakeholders that you have to
Yep.
try to make decisions for, but sometimes they're at odds with each other and you never have the full information. And so I do agree with you where like you almost have to, it's almost better to make a suboptimal decision than wait for all the information, because by the time you get all the information, either the moment an opportunity's passed,
Yep.
which is likely the case in gaming and
Right.
esports, or like you were already behind other people who've made decisions, or you're just like you're too you don't get the ability to kind of work through the problem as it goes, right? Like where if you make a suboptimal decision and you're agile and you have agile business processes, like you can start to modify and change like the way that you go about running an initiative or a campaign or a team or what have you, to kind of match the industry or stay ahead of changes. But like things are always going to change, so you almost have to get in it and then start to swim with the current, if you will, rather than like
Yeah.
wait for it to slow down and jump in. Because by that point everyone else is going to be up or down the river, whichever way you want to say it. You might be behind. Actually, like when I got into this job in 2023, towards the end of 2023, I actually read a book on this, which is like, I know, super old boomer of me to say, like, I read a book, but like, um,
I love it.
there's this, there's a poker, former poker champion. Her name's Annie Duke,
Okay.
pretty well known in like World Series poker space and everything. So she wrote a book called Thinking in Bets.
Mm,
And it's all about like trying to make smart decisions when you don't have all the information, which obviously for poker, right? Like
that's
you're
everything.
playing high stakes games, you only have half the information for the most part, right? Like you're not exactly sure what the other person has. You have to try to make the best decision you have based upon the information. And like I think it's just I think a lot of it is like, oh, if that's a bad decision, like this was like one of the big takeaways is like it's not a bad decision. It's just you had a bad outcome, right? The decision could be great, right? Like, hey, there's 80% win probability on this, let's just say from a poker hand standpoint, right? So, okay, 80%, 20%, like that's pretty good. Maybe you go all in, boom, the river, comes and you lose on like a inside straight draw or something crazy like that, right? And like, dang, like was it a bad decision? No, like everything was in your favor. 80% chance, like pretty solid. I think most people would take that every day.
Yeah.
It was just a bad outcome, right? On a good decision. So um like it's definitely an interesting book. Definitely made me think more about like how do we make decisions at EG in the esports space when we don't have all the information, because we never will.
Yeah.
And so you kind of have to take a little bit on a probability standpoint, or weigh the opportunity and like the options as well as what the loss could look like, and make your bet.
It reminds me too, where I love that you brought that up. I mean, thinking in bets in itself, in and of itself, I mean, just that phrase, I think speaks a lot to how sometimes you have to live life, make decisions in business and gaming. And look, man, I
Yep.
think one thing that it reminds me of is we're about to play Furia next week, right? For all the marbles in this part of the season, meaning like to get to that next step. We don't want our season to end early. We have to beat Furia to get to the next step in this case. So in terms
Yes.
of the result we're looking for, like that's set. Like at the very high level, what do we need to do? We need to beat for you at this point of the season. Forget about what happens in playoffs and after, right? Obviously, the ultimate goal is make it a champs and then do as well as we can there. But right now, the goal is set for us. Like we have to be Furia, so work itself down, work your way down. And one thing I really, when I chat with our coaches and our players as well, one thing I do like to remind them is don't let any of the failures up until this point impact the fact that like the stuff that works well for you in the vision you've set, in how you guys want to play the game as a team. There are certain things that you can't throw everything out the window and start from scratch every single time during a season. There are moments for sure. There are moments during the year that you can do that, off season, of course, or the break between stage one, stage two, adjust more heavily there. But there are also parts of the season like we are now where we kind of have to take the best of what's been working and drive it forward as much as we can, adjust for the weaknesses that Furia has, and you have your game plan, right? So I think from that perspective of like, we kind of have to learn and adapt without compromising what the core vision is. And that applies, of course, to EG as a business, but also the bets we take as a business, the gameplay we have, how we structure the team. I know there's a lot of discussion out there in the public sphere, like, are we using the best comps? Are we using the best maps for those comps and things like that? And look, at the end of the day, what matters for any team is you have to adjust when you have enough data points and you're thinking and you see it's not working. But at the same time, what happens if it's working in practice, but then it doesn't work out in matches? Do you focus more on the execution element of it, or do you focus on actually changing it up completely? And I think, look, there's no right answer on how you approach it. I think if fans would like to think there's a right answer, which is just as soon as you notice an issue, you completely change it up and you hope it works perfectly. But the reality, just like in business, is if you are going to change up something core, part of your vision and your system and things like that, you have to also leave room for reps and failure. Right. And look, this weekend, I mean, we're not looking for failure. Right. So it's just to set kind of that tone of with our fans and of course, just with anyone who's listening as well. I mean, of course, you can, just like me and Chris and many other folks, our coaching staff and our players as well. Of course, would they go back and change certain things for certain matchups that we've already played? Yeah, of course. But the reality is we have a certain goal right now in mind. And what's the best way with the minimal obstacles to achieve that and beat Furia? That's what's on our mind. So again, that's our main thing we're thinking about. All the other stuff we can improve on that might need to be put and put towards a more, let's say, less challenging part of the season and the year. Of course, we put in that category, but now the focus is clear, right? And that, we have to move forward. We have that number one goal in mind, and we work downwards from there. And that's just kind of how it works in anything you take on, right? So I love the fact that, look, from a perspective of like, what do we need to do? It's clear. How do we achieve it? And how are we going to achieve it against Furia? That's what this week is about. We build upon all the stuff we've also done in stage one and stage two so far. Some were great, some were not so great. And the goal right now is you put your trust in the folks that you hired in the first place, right? I think that's the right thing to do. So my final question to you, just for this week, is when you decide, when you see the ebbs and flows of folks that you end up bringing into EG and be player contracts, coach contracts, but also staff and everything that goes along with running a business. When you see the ebbs and flows and some things are working, some things are not, how do you yourself kind of manage the expectations of yourself and the board and everything else, and just to be like, hey, this is part of the journey of making an organization successful in esports, which in and of itself is an industry that's emerging, very similar to the startup industry. There's going to be these major ebbs and flows of the peaks we've had to the valley, all the way to the bottom of nothing is working our way. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, it is one of those things. It's a very dynamic industry. It's still kind of finding its footing. And for us, like, we have to set what the vision is and what we believe we can go to, especially talking to the board about like, hey, like, obviously, like, they've seen, they came in and were part of like EG when it was player owned, right? That's when they acquired it, to like, obviously, like, we had some high highs in 22, 20, even 21, 23, like all through that point, like the esports winter. Like, this is one of those, and now we're starting to rebuild. And so working and helping them understand, like, that it is a process, right? It's not a overnight change that's going to happen. It's something that we all have to work towards and build on, and like, and helping, and they see that, they understand that, which is good. But I think it's taken, it's not just like they got it. They got it through like conversations and showcases and like, hey, here's the wins, here's the progress we're making. Um, as we do reports and as we talk through, monthly and quarterly, here's where EG is, here's where we're going. And seeing that we're still on the path and the process, like is I think good for them and helpful for them to see like that there is progress being made. We are making changes. We are making positive impact on the community and within the company, and seeing like the success of our staff and our players, like, and showcasing that to them and to the public on social media, I think also helps with the perception and like that it is reality that things are getting better here, and we're improving over time. But it's still a long ways to go. And it like, for me as a leader, it's super fulfilling to see like the success of our staff and our players, and even the vendors and stuff we bring on, who are helping to create, more just interactions and pieces of EG that I think everyone can be proud of. And so when you see, your staff find success, or your players, it's just, that's one of those things I think as a leader, like, that I'm very proud of, because it means we helped set them up to do that, and that they're coming through, whether that's in the clutch, like in a pressure situation, or their preparation and hard work has helped them find those wins. So yeah, I'm excited for more wins to come in, whether that's on the virtual playing field or from the business side.
Yeah, I'll leave. Thank you for sharing that, man. I appreciate that. I'll leave with this thought as well. It's something you told me a long time ago, actually, which is no matter kind of like if you're making a decision and that decision could change depending on the results of what ends up happening later after the decision, then maybe that decision that you made wasn't the best to begin with, because really the decision needs to stay strong regardless of the results and the ebbs and flows of the business, the competitive results, and everything else. You said that in some other words. Obviously, my memory isn't perfect. I'm getting older too. But just that, I think hearing that from you, it stuck with me. This was like a few years ago, so it's just something that stuck with me. Of like, look, when you make a decision, you decide this is your vision. That shouldn't be changing based off of the results and the stuff that you can't necessarily 100% control, right? And I think that is the ultimate kind of litmus test of like, are you happy with the decision you make? Perfect or imperfect info, anything goes, whatever you have at your disposal. So I just love this conversation of how do you deal with that? Like, how do you deal with that
Yeah.
uncertainty, being an underdog in ways, but also you have so many other stakeholders as well that are part of this ecosystem, and some part of that ecosystem at the same time will find success while others may not be. But all in all, it's still leading up to that vision that you set and the decisions related down from that. So again, Chris, thank you. Obviously, looking forward to
Yeah.
playing against Furia and nailing our ticket down to playoffs. And this Saturday is gonna be a great game. I'm gonna bring the popcorn. I'm gonna put this on the big screen, and hopefully I'm glued to the seat for the right reasons.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. It's a must watch. And I know Potter and the team will be up for it. So looking forward to it. Thanks, Soham. It's always
Yep.
good to chat.
Likewise. See you guys next week for another episode, hopefully under better pretenses as well. See you guys.
Bye.